Hello, my name is Barry Dillon. I composed the music for the work in progress 2 days in September. This represented an opportunity for me to work on some cinematic work, capturing the aesthetic, the dangerous time. This represented an opportunity for me to continue my relationship working with Joan and Dermott. Works on the visuals, Dermott is the writer, and I do the music. We have a very tight, long-standing working relationship. Hopefully in the future I can work on the soundtrack for the 2 days in September when we bring it to a full production, which is a golden opportunity for which I'm really excited about.
Hi, my name is Joan O'Hanrahan and I am director of this segment of the play 2 days in September that Dermott Petty wrote. I'm also responsible for the visuals and camera work. We're hoping to put this play on in the near future, and it's a very exciting piece of writing, and I'm honoured that Dermott has asked me to be director and Barry Dillon as composer. Dermott, Barry and I have worked on many projects over the years here in North Clare, and very exciting productions with local talent, actors, musicians, locations that enable us to make a lot of our work here, which is fantastic. Culture Night is a very important yearly event that enables all artists and ourselves to showcase our work to each other and to you, our audience. And we'd like to thank you for that and for your support. On behalf of Dermott and Barry, I hope you enjoy 2 days in September.
Hello, my name is Dermott Petty. I'm the writer of the play 2 days in September, the segments which we're about to show you here. And this is a work we've been working on since July. Barry Dillon, the composer, and Joan O'Hanrahan, the director, and the visuals. And this is all about 2 days that happened in West Clare in 1920, which changed the course of history in West Clare and of Ireland. I first became aware of this story as a young boy up in my grandparents' home in Lackamore in near May, and it has stuck with me, and the opportunity to work on this has been a dream. I was supposed to act in this. Unfortunately, on September 1st I became ill, so there's two actors, James Raleigh and Alan Cook, doing some of the parts. And I also really wish to thank my co-creators, Joan O'Hanrahan and Barry Dillon, because working on an original piece like this is very challenging yet very, very exciting. It is important to note that we are not historians, we are telling a story, and this is more the story of the ordinary people that were involved with that and how they changed the course of history. And I really hope you enjoy this segment. Thank you very much.
This tale takes place in September 1920 in West Clare in Ireland, in what was then a dominion of the British Empire. While a rugged, beautiful part of the world, West Clare had a troubled past. Poor land, proud people, and a great yearning for change. Ireland had had many revolutions during British rule, yet this one, the War of Independence, was different for one notable feature. The distinction was in whom was leading the rebellion. The leaders were not Celtic chieftains or Anglo-Irish nobility, bishops or people of power. They were tenant farmers, housewives, shopkeepers, factory workers, nurses, and even former soldiers. Capable, hardworking, some shy, some outgoing, and some surprised to be even in the battle. They were not without flaws, yet they burned inside with a sense of criminal injustice, and more importantly, a bold imagination that they could make a real difference in the narrative, the history, and the future of their homeland. West Clare in 1920 was recovering from a land war, many famines, World War I, and a cruel government. Yet, 2 days in September, Wednesday the 22nd and Thursday the 23rd of September, were to be as significant as all the other events combined for the area of West Clare. And so it began with a brutal murder.
The first difficulty for the ambush was that of being called off again. Preparing for battle was a difficult task, a life-changing decision. The British Crown forces were becoming more aggressive and more cocky. For many of the volunteers, this was a claw in the throat, humiliating to watch. It was not that they wanted the ambush as much as they needed a scrap, a chance to fight back, a show of force, a time to create history. The official reason for the ambush was the rebels needed guns and ammunition, desperately. There were many women and men in the locality more than willing to fight, but they needed guns. The likes of weapons used in past rebellions, pikes and blades, were simply of no use. The spot picked for the ambush was the Drumeen Hills and the hamlet of Reneen, leading into the village of Milltown Malby. In Reneen, there was a low cliff edge that forced motor vehicles to slow down as they passed by, deeming the perfect spot to conduct the ambush. It ran along by the West Clare Railway. Before the ambush, Ignatius O'Neill gave a speech in which he addressed the volunteers as soldiers of the Republic. The IRA volunteers had between them 10 rifles, 16 shotguns, and very little ammunition between them. The enemy that they were facing were much better equipped, better trained, and greatly outnumbered them. What could go wrong? Most of the volunteers marching that night had no weapons, no guns or grenades. All they had was the clothes on their backs and a sandwich for the journey, armed only with the belief that they were making a difference to the history of Ireland. They were to be used as scouts in the upcoming battle, and the scouts were to inform the platoon of armed volunteers as to when the British military convoy was coming towards the ambush location, and also they were to warn the volunteers of any other vehicles that might be approaching Reneen. Suddenly, there was a call from the scouts. A vehicle was approaching from Milltown Malby. A motor car? Was it belonging to the armed forces? One of the volunteers stopped the car to ask for directions, and he found that the car was driven by a couple of newlyweds who were on their way to Listonbarra for their honeymoon. War or peace, romance still will happen. The couple then drove on to the spa, unawares that they were being watched in the high grass by armed members of the Mid-Clare Battalion. Then silence, boredom, the sounds of summer, a lovely Indian summer day, and weather that would make one forget that there was a war taking place, that at any moment the battle could begin, and with that this could be the last breath of any of the waiting volunteers. Had orders to shoot a warning shot at the trucks. Then there was a faint sound of an approaching vehicle from the Ennistimon side. Sound of a lorry. Oh, this couldn't be. The scouts had not sent a signal that there were lorries coming. Guns were readied. Soldiers took positions. And then finally, a message was shouted from scout to scout. 3 cars coming. The riflemen relaxed, and then they waited for the convoy of motor cars to pass by. Imagine their shock to see them passing. Then was not 3 motor cars, but instead a convoy of 3 army trucks filled with British forces. Were they supposed to ambush the convoy that had just passed? Confusion abounded, and for what was determined later was that the first scout had called out, "Police car coming." Yet the next scout thought the message he heard was, 3 cars coming. So then he forwarded the amended message to the volunteers laying in wait. O'Neill imminently sent scouts to Ennistimon to find out what had happened. And soon he was informed that there was another patrol coming from the Hinch. And this time the ambush was going to happen. And again, silence, birds singing, and from a distance one could hear the surf of the Atlantic Ocean. And then a new sound, a vehicle approaching from the Hinch, and again rifles were readied, orders were awaited. The army lorry drove closer, fingers on the trigger, heart beating, waiting for the order or the warning shot. John O'Neill fired the warning shot at the approaching Crossley tender lorry, and then all hell broke loose. As the lorry came forward, a volley of gunfire came from the volunteer riflemen, and the enemy never got a chance to fire a single bullet in reply. The tender driver slumped over the wheel, blood flowing from his neck. All 6 officers in the truck were shot dead, and one that had escaped was also shot dead as he ran away. Within a matter of minutes, the ambush was over. All the British soldiers were dead. After the barrage of gunfire, an eerie silence returned. And then a rush to the lorry to gather the ammunition. The Lee Enfield rifles were quickly confiscated, capturing over 6 rifles, .645 Welby and Scoot revolvers, and some hand grenades, and up to 3,000 rounds of ammunition. Up to now, the ambush had been an extraordinary success. But then, disaster drove by.
That evening, an eerie calm befell the town of Ennistimon. Military trucks were heard being loaded up, and there were reports that many of the soldiers based in Ennistimon had been drinking heavily all afternoon. The rumour was that the British forces were getting ready to attack the village of Milltown Malbay. The rumour was half right. They were going to attack Milltown Malbay, but first they were going to destroy Ennistimon. Soldiers stationed at the Ennistimon workhouse drove into town with incendiary devices, along with cans of petrol, and the purpose to burn out any known IRA members, their families, and Sinn Féin sympathisers living in the town. At 9 p.m, the attack began. The first place they burned was the town hall on Parliament Street. The irony was that the Crown forces didn't have to travel as the town hall was right next to the RIC barracks. It continued with the burning of houses and business in Parliament and in the main street. Smoke, screams, running babies crying, gunshots fill the air. It continued with the people rushed out to see the blaze from the fire. One man, the tailor, John Whelan, and his wife walked up the hill and was horrified when he looked back to see that his own house was on fire. Hello, Mary, the house is on fire. I know it, John. What are we going to do? Where are you? Screamed the soldier. Come out and fight, you IRA cunts! People fled the village. Many weren't able to. The soldiers attacked places where they believed IRA members to be working or living. Mr. Tom Knoll, the secretary of the Irish Transport and General Workers Union's house was surrounded. They broke down his door, arrested him, tying his feet and hands. He was then shot in the head by the RIC officers in front of his family while burning the house down. Then they threw his body into the burning building. In the morning, all that could be found of poor old Tom was part of a blood-stained skull. The blackened hands broke into Flanagan's shop, stealing a good amount of liquor. Then they set about to burn the shop where Susan Flanagan was working. Don't burn down the shop, the invalid sisters is upstairs. I don't give a toss about your invalid sister. I don't care if you have 5 of them upstairs. Susan Flanagan had to drag her sister out of the house on her back as it began to burn the shop down. Then they went from door to houses, giving the occupants 7 minutes in which to leave before they destroyed their homes. Some officers made attempts to put out the fires. By now, the town, a burning cauldron. The soldiers began driving out of town when they came across a 15-year-old teenager, PJ Lennon, who had been sent by his mother to warn his grandmother that her house could be in danger of being burnt. He shot poor PJ 4 times. His body was not discovered till early the next morning. With that, they travelled to the Hinch. They had more fire and fury and terror to bring to West Clare that night.